I sold my soul, and all I got was this lousy champion. Hey everyone, Bront CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here to do a guide on Freyja, everyone's favorite Deck of Fate champion. Yeah. There should be a video coming out. I don't know if it'll happen before or after this drops, but there will be on the polls. You can certainly check that out. I'll post a link to it up here. But I did not spend any money. As I mentioned in previous thing, I had a ton of folks ready to upgrade. I still have a ton of folks ready to upgrade here, but I did a chunk of work champion training. I pulled a ton of souls. I still have a bunch of souls because I just got a bunch of them from Hydra. I'm going to save them at this point in time. But I've got a Freyja, and she's interesting. Not as thrilled with her as I'd like to be, but at the same time, I'm actually more thrilled with her than I thought I was going to be. So it's really kind of hard to explain. So why don't I get into break down the champion? We'll go over her kits. We'll go over how I've built her. We'll go over ways I would recommend building her. And then we'll talk about some of the places I think she could be useful, both for early, mid-game, and end-game, and what kind of things she can do. So let's go take a look at her kit. First of all, go find my Freyja. She's down there somewhere. There she is. All right. I have built my Freyja in 9-piece protection gear because I was actually able to do it. It's not the greatest protection gear, so my stats are certainly a little compromised, but I got a lot of speed out of it. And she throws a lot of buffs up there. So I think this works pretty well. But first of all, let's just take a look at the skills and why I would do something like this protection gear. So first of all, she's got the A1, and I have it booked, so I've got a 40% chance of placing Provoke. Not super reliable, but she does get a counterattack when the shield buff placed by this champion is removed by damage, which occurs once per turn. So she gets possibly a second attack, maybe every other turn. It's kind of hit or miss depending on whether they break through her shield. Her shield is actually pretty tanky. Speaking of the shield, she does an increased defense buff for all allies for 2 turns, and then places a shield buff. And this is important. It doesn't say and then, but that's how it works. So she gets the increased defense, and then she places the shield buff, which is based off of her defense and the champion's target's max HP. So this shield gets the benefits of her own increased defense, which makes it a pretty chunky shield. That's great. And that part I can't complain about. Plus, increased defense is nice. It's actually good to have some increased defense champions. She could be used for some defense-based nukers in Arena just because of this skill alone. So that's great. Obviously, shields have bonuses and penalties in Arena because there's definitely enough champions that ignore the shields. But there are also enough that don't, so it's possible to use. She's got an A3 that does removes all debuffs from all allies and places block debuffs on her 2 turns and fills their turn meter by 20%. I was kind of meh on this skill because the legendary removes all debuffs and places block debuffs just seems okay. To be fair, Pythion's got a very similar ability. It actually means that she can be used in a lot of places. Python could be as well. The turn meter makes this better than I really was expecting. The turn meter is actually really good, especially if you've got a fast Freyja like I do. A 3-turn cooldown cleanse is honestly really not much to sneeze at. And the fact that I've got her in protection gear means that she's getting a 50% chance of these to be unblockable or unremovable or unstealable or whatever. This is useful in Hydra. This ability plays all over the place. This can be used in Arena. This can be used in Hydra. This can be used in Clan Boss. You could actually build a Clan Boss team around her pretty easily between the cleanse and block debuffs, making her almost a fully cleansed team with a chunky shield and this increased defense. Can keep your team alive. She can do almost everything you need to keep your team alive. You then throw in an ally protector or some other way to keep your team alive, and then build in some damage, and it's a great progression clan boss team. And then finally, the passive for defense increases by 5% each time an ally inflicts a critical hit. So this should stack up pretty quickly, particularly in Arena, but just about anywhere where you're going to have your champions doing critical hits, this stacks up. And again, 50% extra defense on a champion that's defense-based in the first place get really chunky here. She also can prevent the death of an ally with the highest crit damage except for this champion and keeps them alive with 1 HP when hit with a fatal hit. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, this effect only activates once. Then heal that ally by 20% of their max HP and activates an instant turn effect on them. This is where I mentioned that I feel kind of, ripped off with her. The way that this works is this works on a per hit basis. So what can happen is, we'll just take a Heffrack, for example. Heffrack will hit you once and then hit you a second time if you're below 50% HP. Well, if he hits you once and would have actually one-shot you entirely, which to be fair means you're a fairly squishy champion, but he does hit pretty hard, so it's possible. She'll stop the death, heal you up, and then Heffrack takes a second hit and kills you anyway. Same thing with Harima's triple hitter. Same thing with anybody's double or triple hit. Can hit through this. Now, it's possible that Polarium has bugged this out and it's not working properly. And to be fair, I've heard reports where this can work in Spider, where it can actually prevent the Spider from dying, which is kind of scary. I've actually had times where I've been able to run it through the same fight, and it's worked differently in 2 of the 3 fights. I don't know what's going on with this skill. It is entirely possible it is broken. But reading it as it reads right now and seeing what it generally has been doing, you cannot assume that this will keep your champions alive in Arena under any and all circumstances. It does have to be the highest crit damage champion. That's important, so you need to know who you're going to be keeping alive. Much like Necrit protects the champion with the lowest HP, this protects the champion with the highest crit damage. So you do need to kind of know that as well. It also means in live Arena, it could be possibly one of 2 champions, and if you get 2 nukers in a team, you may actually not be sure who you're going to protect, depending on if you know their crit damage on both champions or not. Again, that's fine, but you just need to keep that in mind when you're using her. So she's got a defense aura in all battles, and then I don't have a blessing on her, but as far as good blessings, Lightning Cage is decent because she's throwing a bunch of buffs up there, do additional damage. Intimidating Presence doesn't hurt. Ward of the Fallen, probably not. That's probably not really for her. Temporal Chains could be good. That can affect the speed of the enemy if they're going to be putting buffs on. If you're going to use her in Arena, that's probably not a bad one. Cruelty is kind of okay, but since she only attacks once in a while, probably not great. Life Harvest could be good. Life Harvest is good to have on somebody in Arena, although it's probably not really her. Soul Reap, probably not good. A Polymorph is always an option, particularly if you're going to keep her with some decent accuracy. Brimstone could be good for some PvE content, although I don't like that on AoE champions because you never know if you get it on somebody that you want to or you don't want to. Finally, honestly, I'm not super familiar with all these things yet. I'm not really seeing anything that really screams her. No, there's nothing really in the Harmony side. So those are some of the blessings I might recommend. Brimstone doesn't suck. Polymorph could be okay. I would probably stick with something either like Intimidating Presence, especially if she's going to be an aura lead for you. Lightning Cage is kind of good because Lightning Cage can give you some additional damage based off of enemy champions max HP or boss max HP. So this is not reliant on her stats at all. So that extra damage could be okay occasionally. And then you get protections from taking some of the buffs off, particularly if you don't build her in protection gear or if you want to go with a Stone Skin route as well. As far as my build goes, she is a defense-based champion, but as a tanky champion in general, I didn't shy away from giving her some HP as well, particularly for Arena. So she's got just under 5k defense, just about 70k HP. I believe I've got an HP chest and a defense glove right here. I've got defense on the banner. I've got defense on the amulet. I've got HP on the ring. I prefer defense here, but again, I was looking for 9-piece protection, so there's that. Definitely was looking for high speed, especially because she does have the speed buff. So I figured that high speed would be very good for her. If I was to compromise a little bit on the speed, honestly, I could probably take these boots off, which these are great boots, and then get her some additional defense by putting defense percent boots instead of speed boots on her and lose, at this point, 57 speed minus whatever I would gain back from the boots. So that would hurt just a little bit. Go back into the total stats here. I did not go high resistance. I don't think high resistance is bad for her. I just did not go high resistance because, again, I was looking for protection set. I think protection set's going to be great if you're going to bring her into Hydra because that gives you some additional 10 or 15% damage boost because you get the damage boost for all the buffs that she's putting on there. Her accuracy is not great. I got a lot of it through Masteries, which I'll show you later. I would like a little more accuracy, especially if I'm going to take her in Hydra, but honestly, I was really going for, let's bring her in to protect champions first in arena, and the accuracy is kind of a bonus afterwards. So I wouldn't mind a little more accuracy. I can certainly get better gear for my account, at least on there. Obviously, this might be a little out of sorts for your account, depending on where you are. If you're not going to go 9-piece protection, just looking through the sets here, you certainly could go with a pinpoint or a feral to get her some additional speed and accuracy. You could go with supersonic, could actually be interesting in the arena if you've got some supersonic. Impulse wouldn't be too bad. Get some of her skills back pretty quickly, as well as some additional speed. Bolster, if you want to put an additional shield on her in the first place, bolster's pretty solid. Stone Skid could be good for that. Guardian would be interesting because she is certainly tanky, so you could use Guardian to deflect a little bit of the extra damage. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Perception set's always good. Immortal if you want to heal a little bit. Same with regeneration. Relentless if you wanted to take a couple of turns and you want to provoke. You could honestly go with a provoke or a cursed set for Hydra and aim for getting some of these extra provokes out there to make sure that get the provoke really works when she does do her attack, or get that cursed spread out there as well. I went for protection because I think the 10% damage bonus is going to be the most useful in both Hydra as well as honestly in Arena. That extra 10% boost in protection I think is pretty good. So I do have her all booked, so she's got 3-turn cooldowns all around. Everything is ready to go. Masteries, I went with, because I was struggling to get enough accuracy, I went with Eagle Eye. That meant that I had to go with either Sniper or Master Hexer, neither of which are particularly good on her, so do keep that in mind. But I went with the accuracy stuff here. Went with Laura Steel because that helps, especially when you got a set that gives a bunch of extra stats. Cycle of Magic is always a good spell to have. She's going to be doing a lot of buffs, so Rapid Response made sense, as does Lasting Gifts. You could certainly argue that Timely Intervention isn't the worst thing that you could do because that could get her a chance to get the shields up a little bit. Extra HP wouldn't have hurt very well. Oppressor, probably really not what she's looking for. Since I was going PvP route, I went down for the Defiant route, so Defiant, Improved Parry, Bloodthirst into Delay Death, into Cycle of Revenge. You could certainly argue that Tough Skin would be very good. You could argue that Rejuvenation would have been fairly good to go with as well. Blastproof is probably better if you're going for more of an PoE build. So if you're going for Hydra, that's probably a little bit better. But again, I was trying for some arena build with this, and she'll work fine in Hydra. This is just fine as well if you get a chance to get that. So there's a couple different options. She's not doing a ton of damage, so honestly, I would probably not worry about the offense set. Yes, it might be nice if you're going to put her in Hydra to get a War Master out of her, but even then, you're only going to get, at worst, 1 out of 3 attacks, and maybe 1.5 out of 3 attacks if she breaks through a shield occasionally, because she's not going to get a lot of those counterattacks necessarily, unless you build her in something to get additional counterattacks. So this is probably what I would recommend going with, something along these lines here. Let's go take a look. And as I said, other things you could do too. Fearsome Presence. Fearsome Presence is actually another option that gives you additional chance to provoke. You could go with just the bonus defense if you really want the chunkiest shields as well. You could even argue that Bulwark wouldn't be the worst thing to word for her. So, all right, let's go take her into some content and see what we can do with her. All right. So this is a team I've built to mostly kind of show off how I think she can do okay as a Go Second team. You can certainly use other champions. I think I had Podrick in here as well, and Podrick's kind of nice because he does the turn meter boost. But I like having an ally attacker in here because that means you can possibly use her A1 to disrupt the other team a little bit. Plus it brings George's A1 in there. It's pretty good as well. But Duchess is in Stoneskin, so she's built to survive and revive everybody if everyone else dies. Mikage is generally fairly fast, and she's built for good utility. I could certainly use her to help lock people out. Freyja is very fast, built for either getting that shield up or for getting the turn meter boost up as well. And then finally, George is there to do damage. He is also there to kind of tempt fate, because I'd like to see if I can show the passive for Freyja in action. So let's turn this off auto and get started. So did not have enough damage to do anything. We're going to put up the buffs. Freyja lost a bunch of her turn meter, it looks like, so hopefully she gets a turn. Looks like she actually did save Georgid. He took a turn and got rid of his stun, which is unfortunate because he's still probably going to die. But what we can do, we can at least cleanse him off, get that protection on him. Get that revive back, because apparently that got reset. That's awesome. Now we get Mikage going. Mikage, give us an ally attack there. Because it'd be nice to get rid of somebody. Get those shields up. George is now in pretty good shape. And he should get a turn here shortly, hopefully. Let's lock everybody out now. So, stuns. Get those provokes out. And then Georgia should kill the other team. So, not perfect, but Freyja's passive actually triggered, so Georgia did take a turn. He got out of a stun. Probably didn't help too much, but did okay. Decent protection, decent cleansing, worked fairly well for this team, and to be fair, Lazarius is a beast, so not too bad. Let's go take a look at another team here. We'll take a look at this one. They've got Arbiter here to give some speed. You've got Elva as well, and you've got a Mortu that we're going to have to deal with. Fortunately, Georgid can actually deal with Mortu. The real question is, will that Georgid that's probably going to go before my Georgid be able to nuke my Georgid down? Let's take a look and see how it works. This is probably a good indication. Nope, I got my turn first. That's interesting. So let's get rid of Georgid. All right, get shields up. Get the veils up. And Georgia takes care of Mortu, takes care of everybody else. So I kind of wish that team was a little tankier, but Freyja brings some decent protection. She's definitely helping my Georgia do some damage with that protection set. Gives some options between the cleansing and the shield. It's not a heal, but honestly, the shield's tanky enough that, in fact, let's go into one more fight here. We'll do this one here just to show off, because I'm pretty sure I should get a turn here first. Let's get rid of Toshiro, because you're the worst problem. All right, so just taking a look at the shield we're going to generate here. So you see Georgid, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish little bars here. Get that shield up there. That shield is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars, maybe a little bit more. And some of that's based off of his own HP. So it's, pretty decent here. My Freyja has a lot of HP and she got a lot of extra stuff here. My Duchess is pretty tanky and she got a lot of bars. So it looks like it's mostly based off of her defense, because I can't really tell if the shield is that much worse on my Georgia than it is on my Duchess or my Freyja, for example, here. But overall, looks to be pretty good. Yeah, she's got some use in Arena. I'm fighting teams that are a little easier than I was kind of hoping, but hopefully you see some utility there. Let's go take her look in another content and see what else we can do with her. All right, so Dragon 10 is certainly not the hardest content here. We're talking about hard 10, obviously. But I think Freyja provides, between the cleansing, between the block debuffs, and the chunky shield, I think, honestly, she'll provide a fairly simple team that will be very effective. Now, I've got Stultus reflecting some poisons. I've got Tio igniting the poisons as well for the boss. Otherwise, Thor's there for mostly the wave clear, and, well, Lydia will certainly help as well. Otherwise, she's mostly going to be there to push everybody, and same Nora either way, so no big deal. Yep, so let's give this a try, see how well this runs. So she does like to do her turn meter boost and her block debuffs before she does her shield. So do keep that in mind as far as programmer is concerned. I'm not quite sure which one's actually better for programming or for arena, because I kind of see the value of both. It really kind of depends on whether or not you need the shields at the time or you need the turn meter boost and the cleanse. So, well, we've got everybody kind of locked out here. 28 seconds to the boss, so not too bad here. Got some poisons on the boss here, and Everyone seems mostly okay. We've got some decent shields. There's the cleanse. Got a lot of poisons on the boss. And yeah, we're pretty safe. I mean, yes, this is a pretty tough team. And yeah, Thor is a beast. Lydia's a beast. Tio's a beast. And of course, you know, so is Staltus for this particular content as well. So I really can't complain too much about it. But yeah, I think Freyja is doing quite a bit to enable this team as well. As you can see, we're actually at a point where they're actually down health-wise because there's no actual healing on this team. But they still had the shields and they were still alive, and there we go. So it's actually a pretty fast time too. Minute 11 seconds with this team. Nice and easy with the wave clear. So yeah, and Freyja was decently a part of that. The extra shield she brings, as well as the cleansing that she brings, lets this team actually operate quickly and keeps it very safe. So obviously, again, I've got really good gear, but, you know, helpful in Dragon at any floor. Probably not really an Ice Golem team, although, again, that shield could be chunky enough that that could be the difference between an Ice Golem team that works and an Ice Golem team that doesn't. Getting an extra couple of shields on there, getting that block debuffs as well out there for a little while. She could be actually pretty useful in Hydra Ice Golem as well. So let's go take her into some Hydra, and we'll see what we can do with Hydra. All right, so we're going to run this team here. This was my Thor showcase. I do have Vizix that I usually have in here for Freyja, so I'm going to put Freyja in here instead. That does mean I'm going to lose the decreased speed on the boss that Vizix brings, but Thor already brings that as well. I've got the Provoke on her A1, not as good as Vizix Provoke, but I've also got a Provoke set on Uko in this team as well, so that should be very helpful. And between the Cleanse and the block debuffs, and of course her extra chunky shield, we should actually have a pretty tanky team here that shouldn't have anyone die. So I'm going to let this run on full auto, and we'll be back when this is done and take a look at it. I do have her set up to do her A1 first, just to make sure she tries to get off a Provoke. So between her and Uko, the two of them, hopefully somebody gets that Provoke off, and I'll probably restart it if they don't get the Provoke off to start. So, and the other thing that she's going to definitely bring from this as well, we didn't get the Provoke there. In fact, let's just get this off full auto for a second. No Provoke there. And then my last hope, get the decreased defense and weaken out here, is to get Padraig with an ally attack. Perfect. Well, maybe Thor just kills the head in the first place. Maybe not. We'll do, we'll do one more of these. No Provoke. Again, as I mentioned, this Provoke is not the most reliable, but we killed the head anyway. So I'll let this run from here. We're certainly doing some decent damage so far. We'll see how this goes, and I'll check in back with you when this key's done. Well, here we are. And I am pretty sure that's a personal best on hard with this team. So why is Freyja doing better than my Vizix? Well, to be fair, I think that shield is actually a better protection than Vizix ally protection, so she's also probably not dying as much. This team is burning through the heads faster than they can really respawn. So then that's really mostly on Thor, as you can see with the damage here. Thor's damage is, well, just pure damage. Venus does a good job with damage, but Venus also has the Cursed set, so she's getting a lot of that damage from Curse, but she's also doing a lot of damage naturally, and she's got the burns as well. Shamael does a decent amount of damage, and honestly, given Freyja only has one attack and does not have War Master, I'm actually impressed with the amount of damage she has. My Padraig has War Master, is attacking more often, although it's all single attack target attacks, and I believe he's actually crit capped, so yeah. I mean, Freyja, not built for damage, still hitting fairly hard. So maybe I shouldn't be as disappointed as I was when I started the video. She seems very good for supporting, dungeon teams. She seems very good in Hydra. I like this 9-piece protection build, and I think that she's got a A lot of use overall. Is she a super meta champion? No. Is her passive working right even? I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that the passive is not working as it's intended because I'm not seeing the extra turns, or when I am seeing the extra turns, I always seem to be stunned or whatever else, or I've seen people die before they get a chance to get the extra turns. So if the passive is bugged, well, that's certainly an issue. Although, to be fair, too, that's a thing that she might be bringing to this team. If the passive is working properly in Hydra, then there's some times that Thor probably didn't fall down that he might have fallen down otherwise, probably on some of the reflect damage stuff. So from that end, yeah, maybe it's actually what's making the difference. But I think last time I ran this team, I did 550 million, so we're over 110 million over where I was beforehand. So Freyja's doing something right. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you've gotten Freyja, congratulations. Hopefully you're enjoying her, and hopefully this helps you build a Freyja to help your account. So until the next video, appreciate you guys stopping by, watching until the end. Like and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button if you get a chance, and I will catch you in the next video. Till next time, I'm Bront CatHerder.